Okay everyone, we have huge news to talk about because while we were focused on Legion Remix, some developments have went down on Midnight Beta. You see, early in the alpha, Blizzard utterly nuked add-ons. Later, Ian Hazzikostas revealed just how hardcore their new add-on philosophy really is. He said that the future they want for WoW is simple, one with absolutely no competitive advantage from add-ons whatsoever. They can make your game look different, but they can't do anything to make playing the game easier, and that is the hard line. And in some places this was controversial. For what it's worth, the majority of comments I saw were in support of all of this though. I mean, sure, there was still plenty of backlash, but I'd say by and large numbers showed that Blizzard were making the right move. That being said, those aren't player numbers, those are sentiment numbers, people sharing opinions. Who knows how it would actually all feel when the real thing is out. And all of this makes what I'm about to tell you, rather confusing. But first, a huge shout out to my top boys over in the UK government, because now I get even more value from my subscription to today's sponsor, NordVPN. Because using the internet in the UK somewhat sucks right now, but with Nord, I just set my location a few miles down the road to Ireland, and then I'm fine. But the Online Safety Act is not the only reason why I use Nord. Sure, there's the heaps of security, but with Nord, I can also access streaming libraries for other nations. I can browse sources that aren't available here because of GDPR, and I can exploit regional pricing. And that's the spicy one, because you can basically turn the dynamic pricing, which is often used by airlines and car rental companies, against them and save loads of money, which actually makes NordVPN pay for itself. And at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft, you'll get 4 months for free on a 2-year plan that's backed by the 30-day money-back guarantee. And now, Nord are actually more than just a VPN. Threat Protection Pro is built into their app, and it gives you extra layers of security that cover malware, phishing, and loads of attack vectors that are commonly used in scams or data collection. It's all made simple with their desktop and mobile apps, so you can get started with 4 months for free in a 2-year plan at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft. Okay, let's go. Over the last few weeks, UI developers have been trying to find ways around Blizzard's restrictions. And they've been successful. Using classifiers, they found a way to do custom color mob templates, not based on the mob's name, but ones based on other readable values. As an example, do you know that bosses are 2 levels above the game's max level? Well, add-ons can actually see the level of the mob you're fighting, which makes perfect sense. So, if the add-on reads level 92, it can just give it the boss color. The same goes with mini-bosses, which are always level 91. This is mostly harmless, but, well, there certainly is more. And that's because they discovered other ways to color a caster mob's nameplate. So, they can change a nameplate color once it detects an interruptible cast. And better yet, there's a faster way to check, where units have invisible classes that add-ons can read, and for whatever reason, Blizzard flag casting enemies as paladins. So, if a mob is a paladin, technically, then the add-on will give it the caster color. If it isn't, then it knows to give it the melee color instead. And that gives add-on users an obvious advantage. Even on their first time in a dungeon, they can spot casters and will be ready for interrupts. So in the midst of combat, you don't need to recognize the mob, you just need to see the color of the bar. This is what I would call an advantage. It's a minor advantage, but it is an advantage. And it gets really weird, because Blizzard laid out their philosophy fairly clearly, saying that customization is completely fine, that you can change the nameplate colors all that you want, but you just can't do anything that the base UI can't do. So you could change your nameplate colors in general, but not specific in a way that reacts to mobs. So what I just covered falls completely foul of Ian's own post. It falls foul of the add-on disarmament that he laid out for everyone to see. He even put it in bold: add-ons should no longer offer competitive advantage in WoW combat. A competitive advantage can mean a lot of things, so he defines it like this, quote, "They should not be able to make a player more likely to succeed in combat." Without a shadow of a doubt then, having a more dangerous mob highlighted kind of crosses that line, doesn't it? Well, in a follow-up post made to the WoW UI Dev Discord, Blizzard actually went into more depth. They literally called out, quote, "colorizing unit nameplates based on priority." Yet, it actually turns out they're completely fine with what I just talked about. Now, to be fair, just classifying things as boss, mini-boss, ranged, melee, that's a kind of loose priority. As an example, you can't color a specific mob because it would have a more dangerous cast. You can't do that, but it is still a bit of a priority list. Now this is obviously add-on only functionality that does not exist in base World of Warcraft that provides an advantage, meaning it breaks Blizzard's philosophy. So surely Blizzard will shut it down. No, actually, and this is where things really get interesting. Per the WoW developer Discord, someone at Blizzard has actually given them the thumbs up on this. It's a tentative thumbs up, but it is a thumbs up regardless. Now, it is worth saying that Blizzard could break this extremely easily. They could just make classification and levels secret values, and that would be that. This workaround would be dead. But instead of doing that, Blizzard have, for now, said it's perfectly fine. They haven't said this in public. They have said it in private, though, which does make absolute sense, because they will want to have some wiggle room should they regret this. So let's try and figure things out. Blizzard have been fairly aggressive with their own UI. We started with almost nothing, but in one short year, we're now up to a nameplate rework, a raid frame rework, cooldown manager, and damage meters. There's a chance then that Blizzard are allowing this because they actually plan on doing the same thing. Obviously, they couldn't say that to a bunch of add-on developers, but if this is something that the base game UI will be able to do, then not killing it in a bunch of add-ons does actually make sense. And I think this is actually the best way for us to look at this. I mean, we've already got custom color options for raid frames, so it's not like Blizzard borrowing the same classification system for our nameplates would be a crazy thing. It would make sense. And if they did that, then we'd all have those features. And if that's going to be the case, then obviously they wouldn't go and kill this workaround that the add-on devs have found. But there's something else going on here. You see, all of this stuff went down a little while ago, and Blizzard haven't really moved on it yet. And what worries me the most is that this could be Blizzard finally giving add-ons an inch. And you know, give an inch, something, take a mile. We all know what the second part of that statement is. Basically, if you don't hold to your principles, then everyone against those principles will take as much distance as they possibly can, which is an entirely reasonable thing for them to do given their own priorities. And that's something that's already happening in private. Yeah, cue the dramatic music. The add-on devs are coming for Hazakostas again. In that Discord, there were messages alluding to unintended ways of getting around restrictions. Earlier, I mentioned they can find interruptible casts, and, well, that's what they're talking about in public. There's maybe more things that they're talking about in private. Now, if Blizzard can say that they can have a little bit of going against the philosophy as a treat, that could embolden some developers. Knowing, that they have the power to push Blizzard back, they could try to push the envelope and find more ways to take a bit of advantage and stuff it into the add-ons. Especially if they can do so in private, rather than where Blizzard have got eyes and ears in public. In the Discord when people are talking privately. And this is especially the case when many of the advocates for add-ons aren't thinking really as much about, say, the health of the game from Blizzard's perspective, and are more thinking about exactly their own priorities, or maybe at worst you could say the sub-revenue they get for add-on strings. And honestly, that's fair, but we've got to remember how much skin people have got in the game. Now, I could go on here, right, but I don't want to just start a bunch of fear-mongering. They probably aren't hiding add-ons of mass destruction in the tunnels of Discord. But what concerns me more is the why on Blizzard's end. Because I have a hunch here. I don't think the UI team ask Ian every time they have a question. He's already a busy dude. He's probably not getting a panicked call to check if some new thing breaks the philosophy. So what's more likely is that the UI team are making their own calls. They're the people working on the API stuff and communicating with the developers. It's possible that someone in that team said this is good and probably just didn't mind losing that inch of ground. Maybe they were even thinking that this would be great for colorblind players and convinced themselves. And hey, this would be great for colorblind players, I guess. It can be easy to lose sight, I suppose, of a core philosophy when you're working at full speed to make decisions, to finish the UI in time for launch, and to keep the developers reasonably happy at the same time. So there's a chance this is a genuine slip, and add-ons will actually feature, technically, a bit of advantage. Though sadly, we just won't know until we see how things continue to develop, especially close to launch. Every week of patch notes has got some new improvements, and many of them are specifically listed as being requested by add-on developers. This is actually good news, by the way. Regardless of the main story of this video, a lot of progress is actually being made on add-ons being able to customize the game in the way that won't give you a massive competitive advantage, but perhaps will allow you to be a little bit more comfortable when you're playing the game. Which, could be a competitive advantage, but I think that really would be splitting hairs. So, I think that's actually pretty good news. I hope they don't accidentally slip and reopen Pandora's box, especially because they've spent so much effort trying to close it in the first place. But before we wrap up, a bit of tangible news that a lot of you will actually feel in your game. There's been a major development as a result of all of this improvement to customization. Ages ago, ElvUI's developer threw in the towel. Basically, they threw in the towel as a complete overhaul add-on because it would just take too much work to essentially rebuild ElvUI into a much worse version of itself. So because of this, Lucky One publicly announced that ElvUI would be no more. Obviously though, ElvUI's buff and debuff filtering has been a massive, you could say a massive cheat code for WoW UI over the years. I suppose I would also say it just helped the game be damn playable because a lot of Blizzard's designs almost kind of presupposed that you had good buff and debuff filtering. Now, we've made more than our fair share of videos telling to use it for that reason, at least until Weak Wars became so dominant. So, at least the narrative, right, that Ian took ElvUI's head as a trophy, in his war on addons was a kind of compelling story. But it was never real, because Blizzard kept on grinding on improvements to the new API. And this now means that ElvUI is back. In a brief update from early December, Lucky One confirmed that development has already begun for Midnight, and many of the elements have already been patched for the beta. They've yet to decide on how to handle some real big parts, but the UI skinning stuff is back. So, if totally customizing the aesthetic of your UI is important to you, this is major news, and you are in luck. So here's where we stand overall. Nameplate customization is perfectly possible. Raid frames are still a little more up in the air, at least for now. They are making progress on both the API and on the base frame, so we're a little hopeful that it'll be in a good state for launch. Then, ElvUI is back, so everything else will be customizable as well, and all of those things that Elv customizes, and now will be able to customize in Midnight, those are all things that other add-on developers can hook into as well, right? So a lot of that customization gameplay stuff is going to be there. As of right now, there is only one known problem, and that is that Blizzard gave add-ons an inch of competitive advantage with the nameplate coloring. Whether or not that inch becomes a mile, well, all we can hope is that Blizzard makes some sort of clear decision that they're able to talk about in public so everyone knows what the hell's going on. Though funnily enough, if they did kill it, it would almost be the opposite of what they've done with housing just last week. And if you want to learn about how Blizzard finally got rid of the fun police, check out this video next.